YouTube, how are we doing today? We are back for another lift, and this time I accidentally forgot to bring my mic to the gym, so we're doing this as a bit of a voiceover. So we're going to keep this video fairly short and sweet. We've got a leg day setup where essentially we're doing just a few key exercises to get into our program. And so you can see me setting up here a little cable hip adduction. So because we don't have an adductor and abductor machine in the gym, I found that generally just messing around with a couple of different
it's useful to have a bench or something there to support. Sometimes
this is actually something that I used to
do
do when coaching soccer athletes. Pole or something like that. And the general key is to bring the foot across the midline of the body and then allow the hip to abduct towards the cable machine before getting a bit of a somewhat dead stop close to the pulley there. And so this is a pretty simple warm-up. Again, there was no real structure in terms of repetition.
Used a single leg press, so this is just a little bit of a warm-up thing.
Slight foot position, a little bit of
slightly higher.
So
again,
we're still getting some quad and still getting some
exercise.
glute. And then moving the foot with this one a little bit lower to then bias the quads that little bit more. And with this, it was kind of supposed to be a 5-rep protocol with the higher foot position and then an AMRAP, as many reps as possible for the lower foot position. And so you can see I'm kind of pushing it to what was probably 1 or 2 repetitions in reserve. Now, I accidentally forgot that I was doing pushing it to what was probably 1 or 2 repetitions in reserve. Now, I accidentally forgot that I was doing a more higher foot position to start, so we went a little bit more of the lower mid foot on this left side here. But again, just doing a set to complete failure. Again, we're using unilateral because of bilateral force deficit, so we get a little bit more motor unit recruitment before going into our main quad exercise of the day, which essentially, rather than throwing in more squat patterns and stuff like that, decided to hit the leg extension machine. And so sticking with the single leg theme, again, we want more motor unit recruitment going to the left quad in this case. And so we've got the seat slightly back in this one. So basically get all 4 heads of the quads, and we're just basically doing here a slight feeder set, and that's why I'm looking a little bit more casual before we get into our 3 main working sets for the day. So that one was pretty easy. Moving into that second set, now this is actually working weight set. I actually forget exactly what it was. I think it was 170, 175. And what we're trying to do is create a little bit of stability by holding onto the pad here and stay in a bit more of a hip extended position. As you can see, my butt is slightly off out of the seat, just based on the way the resistance curve is and the way this machine is set up. Whenever I do my right side, for some reason, I always feel like I'm a little bit more unstable. So that's why I put my hand down there to hold the seat. But again, nothing too crazy in terms of the eccentric tempo, and we're trying to be not as explosive as possible, but we're still trying to be fast in the concentric action. So again, not overemphasizing the eccentric, although I think it would be important. Now, I left this bit in here because I literally struggled to get out of the machine, and I thought that I would share my struggles with you guys too. For some reason, the mechanism got jammed. I'm not sure why, but for whatever reason, we had to figure out how to get out of it. And by the end, I was like, maybe questioning my own strength in terms of, hey, I might be stuck in this leg extension machine forever. It didn't seem to be working at all for me. So basically, tried with everything, tried to spin it, tried to see if it was like jammed, tried to brute strength it with the upper body, wasn't even moving it, wasn't even budging. And again, I'm not sure what was going on here. So tried to slide out, wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world, but we got free. And then lo and behold, all it needed to do was get my quads out of it. So we're moving into now our second working set. So same theme, same tempo, and just again, same weight, trying to get as many reps as possible, preferably a rep match here. And you can see in my face that maybe I'm a little bit more fatigued after that first set, which generally happens. And that's why people talk about effective sets and effective reps set in that every set subsequently after the first set, we do get slightly less gains in terms of muscle hypertrophy. So this is where we try and prioritize as much as possible our main movement at the start of the lifts so we can work as fresh as possible and get the best stimulus in terms of mechanical tension. But nevertheless, this is still a great set, and I could have gone and done a different exercise, but I decided that I was going to get essentially 4 sets of quad work in if we include that leg press set as one of those sets as well. I'm not really including the feeder set there, but let's call it 5 sets just to keep things as equal. And so this is the last set. Now, I wanted to have a deliberate pause at the top in the isometric contraction in the extended position. So this is why you see that I didn't get as many reps in the set, because I was trying to overemphasize the squeeze in the top position. Now, there's a bit of a debate whether this actually does anything at all. What I decided to do with the isometric is more so for a little bit of tendon load, but also for just switching things up in terms of not just overemphasizing concentric contractions and eccentric contractions. I didn't do any isometrics within this session, so that was kind of my thought process there. Nothing crazy, not saying that this is the optimal way or anything like that, but also I don't think it's suboptimal in terms of muscle growth. So sticking with the theme, don't have to try and move away too far. It's a seated hamstring curl machine as well, so that's why we use that. Now, I didn't want to go single leg because recently I have been getting a little bit of neural feedback on my right hamstring whenever I've been doing the single leg seated version. I've basically narrowed that down to that specific exercise. So I'm doing a bit of a bilateral leg, and I have talked about the bilateral force deficit previously, which again, it's not the biggest end of the world thing. And because we did smash some unilateral quads in terms of central nervous system fatigue and stuff like that, I just wanted to make sure that we're getting an effective stimulus in. And so the other thing that I wanted to obviously avoid with this is looking like Dr. Mike Israetel and absolutely screaming as I'm doing my set. Now, the other thing that I would like to just make a bit of a mention here is I am deliberately trying to extend the knees. In this machine, I do feel like I don't get full lockout. And so in terms of hamstring length and the length tension relationship, I am trying to overemphasize that at the top. And some reps it happens, and other reps I kind of feel a little bit like I rush the rep and stuff like that. So again, pushing to failure on this, you'll see that I'm leaning forward a little bit more in this rep, so that should effectively lengthen the hamstrings in at the hip. And then finishing the session off where we started now with just a glute variation. We do have a hip thruster machine in this gym. I do have dumbbells. We do have a Smith machine. Honestly, I don't really do this variation very often because it is seen as an Instagram girl type exercise. And that isn't me being sexist in any way, but it's very rare that you see a male doing these in the gym. So we should be normalizing males doing this type of movement too. And so basically a little bit of glute max, a little bit of glute medius focus. It's not the biggest worry for me in terms of an area that I need to bring up, but I like to put this in at the end because we're not getting any other kind of glute work in within our session. So this is nothing crazy. Again, using the bench for a bit of stability. I know that I looked like I was wiggling and wobbling around right there. And then also using the rack of stability too, so we can hinge over. So we're kind of in that single leg hinge type position while we're doing this kind of more adduction kickback, where it is a bit more diagonal, as I generally feel my glute medius a little bit more in that exercise. And that is everything for our leg day. So make sure you like, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you comment if you have any questions.